Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 3 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. Hey coach, I wish you had a great Thanksgiving. My question is, how often can you progress on something like your non-athlete intermediate program thinks in advance? You know, when I grabbed this question, I thought it was going to ask how long can you progress, because how often is going to be completely dependent upon the individual and your lifestyle. How long? Maybe a year. You could probably stretch it out for a year and a half, to be honest. But anything beyond that, you really are going to need a more advanced program. And I'm not saying you can't continue to make progress. It's just that it's really going to slow on something like that. I'd say maybe about a year. And that's true of any program, whether it's a novice style program. And yes, I understand a lot of novice programs really flounder much quicker than a year. But same with intermediate programs. I mean, in all honesty, by the time you're at 3 years of training, you really should be on some form of advanced program. And if you're not, then you did something really wrong in your first 3 years. All right, next question. Coach, what's your opinion on Big Rob Fitness talking trash? All right, this is being asked in my comments a lot. And this is really about on par with you guys making jokes about Jason Genova. I'm sorry, but this is very obviously, and I'm going to say this as politely as possible, someone who is dealing with their own handicaps and challenges. And, you know, I'll applaud the guy for actually getting in front of a camera in that situation. To be fair, you know what? Guy has his own challenges and everything in life, and he still gets in front of a camera every day. So, you know, I'll give him props for that. But the truth is, this is someone who is suffering from their own handicaps, who has been manipulated by trolls into thinking I'm some terrible person, and he's making videos. And I know he makes random videos about different people, but it really isn't funny. It's not something we should be making fun of. And the reality is the guy is just saying stuff way out of left field because trolls have manipulated him. Things like I claim to have been a veteran, which isn't true. People who've tried to claim that, we go and realize actually I never did. He's claiming that I'm racist against people of Middle Eastern descent, which if you guys think that's the case, then ask the power lifter Adam Hamden. Yeah, look up at that where that last name is from. If I've not given him personal advice on his first firearm purchase and everything. You know, the perfect example of, no, I clearly am not discriminating against people of Middle Eastern descent. In fact, that's a perfect example of someone whose family came from Palestine, who I have given firearm advice to, all right? That should speak volumes. That should speak volumes right there. So just absurdity that, again, trolls have manipulated this guy into believing because he's an easy target for them. And honestly, it's not funny. It really isn't, guys. And anyone who's standing there continuing that, you're essentially making fun of people who are suffering from handicaps and drawing them into drama and nonsense. And if you think that that's appropriate, I really have to question your own values as a human being. All right, next question. All right, and this is a really in-depth question. I like this one. Jason, I've been returning to lifting after a 15-year break because of old injuries. Started lifting at 11, did a state high school meet at 13, and didn't come in last. But sports, training, and probably genetics had me needing joint replacements by 18. After many experiments with what I can tolerate, I found the West Side style speed days, 12 by 3 at 60% bar weight plus bands, or the original breathing squat protocol, 1-5 deep breaths repeat, is about the only way I can train with any poundages or volume consistently. Previously, I've had to take months or years off after only a few months or even weeks or of conventional style training because of pain and injuries. Do you feel this type of training, select few exercises, lower volume, higher frequency, can be conducive to long-term progress? Your video on the 10 by 3 rows and push presses is extremely close to what I'm doing now for all intents and purposes. But you say it's not for beginners, really. Any advice would be appreciated. Well, you're not a beginner, man. You have a training background, right? You've competed in powerlifting, even in your teens, and competed in other sports. You've come back and rebuilt a little bit. You're not really a beginner. So that's fine. You can do intermediate style training. And if you're finding that certain types of training styles, like going with really heavy 3s or 5s, maximum poundages, or ultra high volume training is a problem for you due to these old injuries, your joints, everything else, then by all means continue with this style of training. You know, doing high volumes of triples, like you said, 10 by 3 with stuff that's 70% up to 80%. is good for speed, power. You can build size doing it. And again, as long as you keep all the volume and poundages in check, it's not going to beat up your joints and everything else which you have an issue with. I think it'll be fine for your situation. The problem we're going to argue about is going to be one of stagnation, because a lot of conventional style methods are problematic for you. You're going to have to be careful in how you program and periodize this so that you don't stall for long periods of time, because you're going to find at certain points you're going to struggle with making progress. So you're going to need to be able to vary those things and adjust those things. But yeah, I think having a relatively small exercise selection of just big movements that work your full body is probably going to be ideal in your situation. Again, with all those joint replacements, that's probably the way you're going to have to probably train, and that's fine. It's workable. It's workable for you, and if it's the way that you seem to be able to get away with, then by all means, carry on. Carry on, and I think it'll work fine for you. Just be ready to adjust frequency, intensity, things like that a little bit to get through stalls and plateaus, and even vary a little bit of exercise variations in there to help with that. All right, next question. How can I utilize ramping sets for the bench press? I do full body 3 days a week and would like to use the ramping method to make progress on the bench press. I do overhead press and pause incline bench as my accessories. Thank you, Jason. Okay, I was going to say, you're not going to maximize hypertrophy doing ramp sets, but you've got those other lifts. So if you're doing pause, incline bench, and overhead press, you're probably okay for the general hypertrophy. So you're just doing ramp sets to get stronger. You better not be a novice. I've seen you post stuff, and if your idea of a ramp set is building up to 185 for a set of 5, you have no business doing this. You need to build a base. You need to go back to straight sets, and you need to build a base. So you can rep 225, I wouldn't even worry about ramping sets. But for ramping sets, you build up to a heavy triple or heavy 5 or whatever it is you're doing. So what you would do, let's say that you're starting at a point where you can bench 225 for 5. That's your all-out max. Ramping means you come in and you do multiple sets of 5 to build up to it. So your first set, you might do 185 for 5, then 205 for 5, then 225 for 5, and that's your peak set. That's what ramping is. You build to a peak heavy set in the rep range you're going to do. And you'd be the same thing with 3s. You know, let's say you can do 255 for a triple and you want to build to 3. So you might go 205 for 3, I don't know, 235 for 3, then 255 for 3. You know, it could be something like that. That is how ramping sets work. And we build up to a heavy peak set. Now, ramp sets are a lot more common for the deadlift, for less advanced lifters, for obvious reasons, because of, again, the volumes of dealing with the deadlift, but you could do it on a bench. The only downside, like I said, is that if you don't have a base built, you're not going to have enough volume and it's going to suck. If you're not already decently strong, it's a complete waste of time. You're going to make slow progress that way. Case of intermediate, which is probably closer to where I bet you are, you're going to definitely need those other exercises to get enough training volume to put on size, because you're not going to get enough volume to maximize that. But what you will do is maximize your peak strength on that exercise. So you'll use the incline and the overhead press to put the extra meat on around it. And that's perfectly acceptable. So do it that way. All right, next question and last question of the week. All right, this is from Ryan Key, who has his own YouTube channel he's been working on building up. My overhead press is 150 pounds for 3 reps at 165 body weight. I feel that my triceps are a weak point. Keep in mind I'm torso dominant. I have long arms. Do you think I should start doing more push presses to bring up my lagging triceps? Not necessarily. I mean, you could. If you feel like you need some extra tricep work, I would ask, are you close grip benching? That would be the first thing I would ask, because in all honesty, guys with long arms like that who struggle with the press, the close grip bench press will really work wonders in bringing your press up. So I would ask you, where your numbers are there. That's one option. If your recovery is an issue and you're struggling with overall recovery, because you can always just do more overhead press. You need to keep that in mind. If you feel like you're stagnating on a lift and it has a weak muscle involved, the triceps get worked tremendously on the strict standing press. There's good EMG data on that. They get worked really hard. You could do more overhead press. If recovery is an issue with too much axial loading from all of that, that's where we throw in a multi-joint skull crusher, right? That could be a benefit to you, something to consider. But what I would look at possibly, if you want to work in a cycle of the push press, For the extra, again, the eccentric loading on your triceps, which it can help with that a lot, give it a go. Give it a go. But in all honesty, I would try first for where you're at now. I mean, a 150 for 3 at 165 is not bad. It really isn't bad at all. You're actually got a pretty good foundation built there. I would first consider making sure that your closed grip bench is up to par, focusing on the closed grip bench a little bit. Maybe a little more volume, adjust volume slightly on the overhead press, and see how those work for you. And if they don't work, but you still feel like your recovery can handle it, go ahead and work in some push press. I mean, I think push press done once a week as an accessory for it could probably help. Again, bringing up your triceps on that, but keep in mind, it isn't going to have the direct movement pattern carryover that you want. So, again, it tends to work the other way. I feel like the strict press increases the push press more than the push press increases the strict press. Just my opinion on it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. Just saying make sure that you're up to par on the other options. Make sure your training volume is high enough on your strict press, and make sure that you've put a little bit of focus into the closed grip first, because that will oftentimes solve the problem as well. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.